is up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, just welcome. My name is Gemma Jade, but today we're going to do something a little bit different. So this is something that I've done a few times before, but recently people have been calling attention to it, I guess because more people are watching, which is awesome. So as most of you may or may not know, I write for Missing Persons and Mysteries, which is Steve Stockton's channel. A lot of you came over from that channel. So some of the scripts I write really affect me when I'm writing them, and I'll decide to go ahead and do a video on the same exact thing myself. While I do use the same script and I'm talking about the same people, if you guys watch Missing Persons and Mysteries and listen to Steve, you'll know that I do things a lot differently than he does. So while it's the same cases and the same disappearances and missing people, and I'm actually using pretty much the same script, I go about it so differently that it's a completely different video. I don't think that we shouldn't spread the word about these missing people simply because my sister channel did. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm talking about the San Francisco 5 today, and I'm just going to go ahead and cover those 5 cases right now because I think that we should give as much exposure as possible to these missing people and their families, to help out the families, because what it's all about when talking about missing people is the families. It's not about YouTube views or who already did the video or this one copying that one. I got Steve and Bill's permission to do this. I always have it. So let's just get started and jump right in. How can someone just disappear without a trace? How could they be here one minute and just poof, gone the next, seemingly erased right out of existence in the blink of an eye? We may never know the answers to these questions, but for 5 families in San Francisco a few years ago, these questions became a part of their everyday lives, and I'm sure the frustration of not knowing, the desperation of needing answers was almost too much to bear. Here are their stories. The first of the San Francisco 5 to go missing was Jackson Miller. Jackson went missing on May 17, 2010. His vehicle was found abandoned near the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. Although there was no suicide note found in or near the vehicle, neither were his keys. Due to his struggle with major anxiety and depression and the fact that at the time of his disappearance, Jackson was being prescribed medications to help with these issues but wasn't taking them anymore, many people, including Jackson's family and loved ones, thought he had almost certainly and tragically jumped to his death. Despite no body or evidence to confirm this theory ever being found, this was what not only the family but the authorities and even the public assumed had happened to Jackson. He was only 1 month shy of his 20th birthday and lived in Cupertino, California at the time. It's been 11 years now since that fateful day in May of 2010, and the family still has no answers at all. His mother stated, quote, "We've been sad and incomplete since Jackson left. There's always been a slim sliver of hope he's alive. We both always held out hope that he was out there, but honestly, we flip-flop back and forth because of the amount of time and just not being able to imagine why in the world he wouldn't call us if he was out there. It's just a huge mystery to us," end quote. There has been a possible sighting of an encounter with a man claiming to be Jackson in March of this year, 2021. A woman smoking a cigarette outside of a Target in Woodland, California claimed a man she didn't know approached her and asked her if she can give him a ride to Sacramento and if he could bum a cigarette. The woman says she declined to give him a ride, and when she did, he allegedly asked if she would call him an Uber and stated his name was Jackson and that he was a missing person. Surveillance footage from the Target store captured something a little strange regarding the man. He entered the store wearing shorts and exited a few minutes later wearing black pajama pants with green shamrocks on them and a dark green sweater. So some people pointed out in the comment section of Steve's video that this is what people do when they shoplift. And most likely this person, whether or not it was Jackson, did in fact 99% sure shoplift these clothes. That's what they do. They go in and put the clothes on over the clothes they're already wearing. But maybe this person was homeless and desperate. I'm not condoning shoplifting. I'm just trying also to not speak badly of someone who may have had some kind of mental breakdown and is homeless or can't afford new clothes. Another business owner in the area, who is yet unnamed, also contacted the Santa Rosa County Police and reported seeing a man who she believed to be, quote, missing person Jackson Miller, end quote, hanging around in the parking lot of her business and trying to bum cigarettes and a ride to Sacramento. She claimed he left the premises, however, when no one would help him. Authorities claim they have reviewed both the Target footage and the footage from the second business, but haven't disclosed publicly yet if the man was in fact Jackson Miller, or if the tips were even viable. No word on what the family says about the images publicly released of the young man in Target. The Santa Clara County investigators would only say, quote, "The sheriff's office is aware of the missing person case of Jackson Miller. Detectives are currently in communication with the Woodland Police Department. At this time, this is still an ongoing investigation, and detectives are currently using all leads to locate Mr. Miller," end quote. I noticed they didn't say to try and locate Mr. Miller. As of right now, however, there has been no more information released on whether or not the young man in question was Jackson. Jackson is still officially a missing person / probable suicide jumper. The next young man to go missing right around the same time and in the same area of California was 29-year-old Cameron Remmer. According to his father, Cameron traveled to San Francisco with $30,000 in cash to start a medical marijuana business. He was staying at the Fairmont Hotel in San Francisco when he was last seen. He had flown there on September 29, 2011. He had bought 60 to 70 packages of the drug with the money he had brought with him. It's unknown how many people knew how much cash in marijuana Cameron had on him during this trip or who he was going there to meet. He was supposed to return home on October 30th, but never showed back up. The last known contact with Cameron was on October 6th when he called a friend who lived in Arizona and asked him if he would pay for another night at the hotel with his credit card and Cameron would pay him back at a later date. The friend said he would do it, but before he had the chance to, Cameron called him again and told him not to worry about it because he had found another place to stay for free. No one ever heard from Cameron Remmer again. This was also the last activity on his cell phone, according to the police, who checked his phone records and pings through the course of the investigation. On the day he disappeared, he left all of his cash and marijuana checked with the bellman of the hotel, along with his personal belongings and luggage, but he never returned to pick any of it up. He hasn't used any credit or debit cards, checked his email, or used any form of social media since his vanishing either. Remmer was unmarried with no children at the time of his disappearance and had lived in a few different cities across the state of California previously as well. Cameron did have some mental illness, mainly bipolar disorder, which he had in the past been hospitalized for. The medication he was required to take for this condition was left behind with his belongings the last day he was ever seen. It's also reported that he had sustained several head injuries in the past. This is important because without medications and possible, even if mild, brain damage, Cameron could have had some kind of episode and wandered off. There have been several reports in the years after his disappearance of him being spotted, quote, unkempt and with long hair, end quote, throughout the San Francisco area, but none of these sightings could ever be substantiated. He was 29 years old, Caucasian with blonde hair and blue eyes, and his nickname was Cam. Despite all of the maybes and possible sightings, Cameron is still officially listed as an endangered missing person. 2 months after Cameron Remmer seemingly vanished without a trace, so did a 23-year-old musician named Sean Tyler Dickerson. Sean was living in San Francisco at the time, but working towards moving to New York City with a friend. The night before he went missing, Sean had stayed up talking with a friend and his roommates until 4 o'clock in the morning. When he woke in the morning of December 2nd, 2011, he realized he had overslept. He was rushing out the door at around 11:30 that morning, explaining to his roommates he was going to be late for work. Sean never made it to work that day and was never seen or heard from again. It's worth mentioning that his not arriving at work that morning wasn't that worrying in itself. Sean worked at a men's clothing store, and just the day before, on December 1st, Sean had never come back to work from his lunch break and had only contacted his boss later in the day to explain why. His boss told him that he didn't want to work with him if he was going to be unreliable, doing things such as working a half a day and never coming back from a lunch break, stuff like that. Sean's ex-girlfriend reported he had left all of his personal things and belongings behind in his room in the house he shared with 5 other people. None of them have ever seen or heard from him either. Sean is considered officially endangered missing, and unfortunately his loved ones have no additional information or answers as to what could have possibly happened to him. On February 7th, 2013, Christian Michael Hughes was in San Francisco on the 3rd day of a trip he had taken from his home in Sacramento to visit a friend. He was supposed to be back home that day by 2:30 p.m., but he had never made his flight. The friends he was staying with, though, said that Christian had packed his things around 1 o'clock in the morning and left. He has never been seen or heard from again. No one knows where Christian was meaning to go when he left that morning, or even why he had decided to do so. He had no other friends in the area and no access to a vehicle. He also had very little money on him. There's never been any explanation given as to why Christian had decided to leave this friend's house so early in the morning. His mother has since come forward and said she has some, quote, concerns about his mental health, end quote, due to his father having passed away right before his disappearance. She'd also said he'd had health problems, but what she meant by this is all unclear as well, just as the circumstances surrounding his vanishing. While the police have stated publicly they do not believe there was any foul play involved in Christian's case, there just isn't enough information made available to the public for most people to understand why they came to this conclusion. Why did they say this? The circumstances are a bit strange, to say the least, and without an explanation as to why he left so early or where he was going, it's hard to come to any kind of reasonable conclusion, in my opinion. He has had several surgeries in the months prior to his disappearance and has unspecified medical conditions. There has been no new information on this case since the initial reports and coverage in the first days and weeks of the event. Though, just like in all other cases, his family and loved ones are still desperately searching for answers and the truth about what happened to him, what happened to their loved one. The last of the quote-unquote San Francisco Five to go missing was Sean Seedy. On May 21st, 2013, Sean Isaac Seedy went to visit an old high school teacher on the 100 block of Oak Street in San Francisco, California. He left his house at 11:40 in the morning and spoke to his father from his cell phone at around 1:30 that afternoon. He told his father he was taking the bus to the local park and would be home later on that day. His phone seemingly went dead a half hour later at around 2 p.m. and was never charged or answered or picked up again. Sean was never seen or heard from again either. Several months before his disappearance, though, Sean suffered a severe and traumatic brain injury due to an accidental fall. Because of this, he never left the house for extended periods of time and kept in frequent contact with his parents on the rare occasion he did leave by himself. He is in desperate need of medication and is considered medically fragile as well. Even the slightest bump on Sean's head could lead to severe brain damage or possibly even death. Even without these things happening, without continued medical care for the conditions he already suffered, he will surely die. Sean had braces on his teeth and is biracial, half Asian and half Caucasian. His left arm and wrist were in a black splint at the time of his disappearance as well. His right eye is slightly drooped and he has many scars on his head and neck, as well as titanium screws in his left wrist and his head. There is little to no more information about where Sean could have possibly gone and or where he could have ended up. There is also little to no information about the police investigation into his disappearance, at least not much that's been made public. Though all of these cases seem to have only one common denominator on the surface, if you look a little deeper, you will see most of them had had some form of mental illness, and 2 out of the 5 suffered traumatic head injuries. Surface things like having the same name could even factor in. I know many people, including investigators, don't believe any of these cases are connected, let alone all of them. But this community, with what we know, should be very uncomfortable with clusters of missing people like this. They were all young men and hadn't turned 30 at the time of their respective disappearances. Could this be a new pattern of some kind? Something along the vein of the so-called smiley face killer? Are the abductors possibly involved, just getting smarter, and the men aren't being found so easily? These are questions we would be remiss not to ask, but we must also remember to be respectful of the families, some of whom may not want to hear such things about their missing loved one. So what are the odds of 2 out of 5 of them having these traumatic brain injuries? What are the odds that they all had some kind of mental illness, depressive disorder, bipolar disorder? I mean, guys, I don't know. My head is trying to make a connection here. My spidey sense is kind of tingling. My brain is being tickled. I just feel like there's more to this than is being let on by the police and the media. The media. Because as we know, the media reports what certain people in power and high position want. That's my opinion. I'd love to state it as fact, guys, because that's how strongly I feel about it. But unfortunately, I have to state it as an opinion. In my opinion, the media reports what the powers that be want them to report. What if this is a new serial killer striking along the vein of the smiley face killer? I mean, we don't know. The police aren't releasing any information on these guys. They should still be looking. These are still open cases. These are still open investigations. Guys, thank you so much for allowing me this time to give you this short video of these 5 disappearances, which in my opinion seem to be connected in some way. I'm hoping you guys can help me kind of make that connection. You guys are so smart when it comes to this. You always say things that I'm like, oh, I wish I'd thought of that before I did the video. It's not a long video, but again, it's very important. Some of the scripts I do for that channel, for Missing Persons and Mysteries, for Steve to read and Bill to edit, just really strike me. And this was one of them, because I have a tingly here. You know what I'm saying? There's some kind of connection here that either the police have already gotten and don't want anyone else to get. Somebody else needs to be making this connection, not just Gemma Jade, small-time YouTuber, right? Let me know what you think. That's all I have for you today, guys. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. If you enjoyed hanging out and spending this time with me, give this video a big thumbs up, please, and thank you. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Make sure your notification bell is turned on so that you get notified every single time I post, right? If you have any experiences with the supernatural and or paranormal, please be sure to send them to my email for me to recount in my Listener Encounters series, which I'm doing. Please send them to gemmajadeparanormal@gmail.com and I will gladly retell them for you, and I'd appreciate it so very much. I'm doing that series. There are so many stories coming in, so many encounters. I can't bang them out fast enough. It's awesome. It's amazing. I think I'm already on number 5. And I just started doing them like a month, maybe a month and a half ago. So you guys have been so super awesome. I also have part 2s, too many of the part 1s from a couple of months ago coming in. I'm kind of doing them all in order and trying to get my research together. So you guys have a lot of, I hope, awesome content coming up that you all have told me you've been waiting for, like the White-Eyed Kids, Black-Eyed Kids part 2, more on the Men in Black, more on staircases. So I'm doing the absolute best I can for you all, and I hope you really know that. Please do me a huge favor and check out the description box. Click on some of the links if you can, if you're interested. The first and foremost, Justice for Caleb Smith. It's a 2-hour interview Steve Stockton and I did on Missing Persons and Mysteries channel with Caleb Smith's mother, April Arrington. No mother should have to investigate the death of her child. We are trying to not only raise funds for her and find justice for Caleb Smith, but get her some support as well. Get some people behind her so she and her family don't feel so alone while she's doing all of this. There will also be links to the 3 live streams Steve Stockton and I do every single week. Fireside chats on Sunday nights from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Wednesday nights, we do Real Evil on DeZombified's channel, Stemma in the House. That's from 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And we're on season 2 talking about urban legends state by state. Real Evil urban legends. On Friday nights, Steve Stockton and I, Stemma again, have campfire stories on Missing Persons and Mysteries, again from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time, where we either read stories that we've written, read from our books, read paranormal stories, shoot the breeze about the paranormal and supernatural community, and a lot of the time we will interview someone from the paranormal community, like a psychic, another YouTube creator, another author, etc. Come on in, join the fun, join the chat live, or click on the links below, see what it's all about first, and then see if you can catch a live for us. Also, there will be links to my PayPal and my Patreon for financial donations to the channel. Guys, I love you so much, and I appreciate all of the support you guys give me on a constant and regular basis. It's so awesome. Without you guys, this would be just me pretty much talking to myself. So thank you so much. Be sure and leave a comment, spread the love, share this video. Be kind to each other, guys. It doesn't cost anything, can make you feel so good. Kindness is like forgiveness. It's for the person giving it, right? Smile at a stranger. You never know how your smile is going to affect someone else's day. You never know what someone else is going through. Always choose kind. Go in grace. Have your best day. Have your best night. I will see you next time. Mwah. Bye-bye.